After Operation Spiderweb, where the Ukrainian armed forces smuggled, well, specifically the SBU, smuggled all these shipping containers with drones in them outside of major Russian air bases and really crippled the strategic bomber fleet of the Russians, radar aircraft, and really, let's just say, humiliated them militarily with the surprise attack, which shows really keep saying really over and over, but the new barriers, the new lengths that drone warfare brings in the 21st century, where you can hold 100 and 150 of these drones as shipping containers, maybe spend altogether $150,000 on all these drones, and you can take out billions of dollars worth of military equipment from miles away. From miles away. This doesn't only have implications for this war, it have implications for other wars. But that's not what we're talking about right now, is the immediate implications. What we're talking about right now is how the Russians reacted. And to say that there's been a bit of a meltdown, to say that they've, started to get a little screechy and chest poundy and rah, 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 I mean, that would be an underestimate, honestly. Because I've not seen them this mad and this angry in a long, long time. Maybe the sinking of the Moskva, which just means Moscow, but maybe it was the Wagner coup, but that their anger was directed somewhere else. This time, it's either directed at themselves and how they could let this happen, and I saw a lot of that on Russian Telegram, but in the English-speaking space, a lot of it's been, you will pay. Now that you've done this, the destruction shall come. And they're talking about it as if there hasn't been a large-scale war being carried out for going on 4 years now. And as if, what is Russia going to do? Invade? Some of this just feels so disconnected with reality, but it seems like, when you feel powerless in the moment, this is what you do, I guess. Let's read a few of these messages. This is from Aiden, famous for English-speaking pro-Russian Twitter accounts. Okay, very specific niche. I'm the most popular streamer named Dylan from the Maryland area, streaming in Ukraine. Anyway, let me read you his message. This is immoral, morally corrupt, bankrupt man. I guess that's what he started with. Thank you, Hill Belichick. I appreciate that for the tier 1. This is Ukraine's big show. They're now expending 6 to 12 months of intelligence and sabotage operation planning right before negotiations are set to begin. Destroy a few bombers, 41 aircraft. If something like this happened in the United States, the committee hearings after committee hearings after committee hearings after press pool, outrage, and media scrum, oh my gosh. Destroy a few bombers is one way to describe it. Kill some civilians by derailing trains, assassinations, utilizing suicide bombers, and whatever other card that have yet to be played. By the way, Russia's been very famously using suicide bombers on Telegram. What they do is they'll put like a bomb somewhere. They'll tell somebody, sometimes it's an old woman, sometimes it's an underage kid, and they'll say, hey, move this bag from point A to point B and you'll get 5,000 hryvnia. And then by the point they get it there, boom, blow up the kid, blow up all the soldiers, and boom, you've gotten rid of the person so you don't have to pay them and they can't rat on you. Maybe they can look at some Telegram messages, but that's it. This is what I've talked about for a long time. And as the symmetrical war snowballs in Russia's favor, the Ukrainians will need to use more creative means. Welcome to the Ukrainian jihad phase. Ukrainian jihad phase. To be clear, if Russia could have smuggled these drones outside of air bases and pulled this off, they would have. If any government that feels like during a war like this, if they could have pulled this off, they could have. It's just being treated like terrorism or jihad, because people just use the word terrorism and jihad like they're the same thing. Is because what? They targeted air bases. They targeted a naval base. They targeted military infrastructure. If those drones were in Kherson being piloted by Russian pilots, I wouldn't be so sure that that would be happening. But this idea of it being the Ukrainian jihad phase, it really got my imagination going. And I saw it didn't just get my imagination going, it got the imaginations going of a few people. And I saw some just fantastic, some fantastic I just can call this art, really. I just call it a me as degrading the type of content that's coming out of the pro-Ukraine space right now. The artistic vigor of a movement taken with the power of Allah as they become the sword of Islam and crack down upon the Russian infidels. Let me actually, there's another one here that was pretty good. Bring this one up.
Вы думаете, что весь мир должен подчиняться вам только потому, что у вас есть атомная бомба? На самом деле вы слабые. Вы боитесь даже собственной силы. Через несколько лет у нас тоже будет атомная бомба. Тогда мир изменится.
There was another one too. I'm only showing a few of them. There was another one about the Bombili Donbass and like a whole bunch of edits. But this idea of the Ukrainian jihad phase is just funny to me because the reason he's angry is because they didn't do it. He's angry because they didn't think of it. They didn't pull it off here. They didn't use it to disable the Ukrainian jets that are taking French Hammer bombs and dropping them on the advancing Russian soldiers. They're just angry that they weren't able to pull it off. And that most of their like intelligence operations behind Ukrainian lines at this point is stuff like those bombings I was talking about earlier. That's not to say they don't have complex operations and people sharing them intelligence. That's just to say that they've never pulled off anything like this in Ukraine. Now, I just wanted to go through one of my favorite accounts on Twitter, and I recommend everybody go give it a little bit of a follow, especially since this account is one of the only accounts constantly reminding the people who were so high and mighty about the fact that Russia was never going to invade Ukraine. Anytime they talk about the war, he's quote tweeting them, reminding them of their statements, saying things like, if Russia invades Ukraine, I'll delete my account. This is one of the few really keeping up the struggle to remind everybody that these, if they were that wrong before, should we really be listening to them now? But he's been gathering a collection of these posts made by people who think that now the war has truly begun, as if up until this point, the Russians were fighting with both hands tied behind their back for no reason, just dragging out the war because, I don't know, they're just bored. They just need something to do, really. I mean, what is there to do in beautiful Murmansk these days? And so I wanted to go through some of these because I was just having I was laying on my belly in my bed, kicking my feet like a schoolgirl. So let's go through a few of these. In response to the attack, you can see it's on the date, June 1st, the start of Pride Month, by the way. Thanks, Zelensky. Appreciate that. If this is true, Ukraine is truly effed. What is coming is unimaginable. Not even Trump can stop it. It'd be nice if he stopped anything to begin with. If he stopped a drone, stopped a missile. I mean, even the ceasefires he got them to agree to, like the civilian ceasefire, the Russians would then immediately disassociate with afterwards. Like, no, we never agreed to no ceasefire. I don't know what you're talking about. Ceasefire. I never agreed to no ceasefire. Why are you saying ceasefire? And the ones that they did publicly agree to, like the energy ceasefire, they immediately violated. So not even Trump can stop it. I thought the war was over. It's 24 hours, man. Not even Trump can't stop anything. So of course Trump can also not stop this. So you want to know now? Actually, I'm an idiot. Technically, that does mean it's true. Trump can't stop it. Ukraine is an insane rogue state, an existing threat to global peace. God, I just remember that Tim Pool clip. Ukraine is the enemy. The enemy. Just bam, bam, bam. Where's that check? Something didn't cash. One second. I need to check my SunTrust account. Okay, where was I? Ukraine's the enemy. Okay. Ukraine is an insane rogue state, an existential threat to global peace. This attack on nuclear assets, facilitated, of course, by the United States, is a shocking and stupid escalation. Now, they just say facilitated to be cheeky, because facilitated would suggest to most people that we provided them the drones to do this, that we planned it with them, that we, gave them targets, that we were somehow involved, where the statements from the Trump administration seem to indicate that they had no idea that this was being planned whatsoever, which, I mean, makes sense. So facilitated by the United States? No. We are going to find in a century to come that our alliance with Ukraine will have more negative consequences by order of magnitude than our support for Osama bin Laden in the 1980s. How? Like 9/11 killed Americans. No Americans who are in service, except for those who come here to volunteer, have died in the field of Osama bin Laden? Okay. Ukraine bombs the planes that are bombing their cities. They're basically like Al Qaeda. There's, oh God, I can't believe it. They're such a threat to global peace and stability. Okay. When I say attack nuclear assets, don't use the nuclear assets to bomb Ukraine, and they won't be attacked. If Russia had all these planes in Vladivostok on the other side of the country, and they were going to use them only for a atomic escalation, then they wouldn't have been attacked. They wouldn't have been touched. They wouldn't have been nothing, no problem. It would have been all peachy keen, bee's knees, cool beans. It's the fact that they've been used to bomb Ukraine that made them a target. So the standard that is being used here is that Russia can bomb Ukraine, can bomb its children's hospitals, can bomb its civilian infrastructure, can bomb its factories, can bomb playgrounds, can bomb all these different places, but Ukraine cannot take out the archer that fired the arrow. It just makes no sense. It makes no sense. And if any of these countries held the same standard domestically in the United States, they would immediately crumble. They would see the problem. If they're like, oh, we can't bomb the Chinese bomber that just dropped all those bombs in Nevada, that's part of their atomic triad. Then don't use it to bomb us if it's such a valuable military resource that you can't risk it. If you can't risk it, then don't use it for these types of operations. And it's not like Russia's law. When you think about the nuclear triad, that doesn't mean just the ability to use nukes. The nuclear triad has to do with them having multiple systems to deliver weapons, silos, submarines, and these types of bombers. So if they lose like even half to 60 to 70% of these bombers, they still have the ability to deliver an atomic weapon by sea. They still have the ability to deliver an atomic weapon by missile, and they still have some bombers, so they still technically have the ability to deliver it by atomic bomber. But maybe now that they've been hit in this way, maybe they'll be more hesitant in using it for active combat operations or keeping them at air bases that might be more vulnerable. Point is, if you have this resource strained, you might preserve the resource more. It's basic defense of the NATO. You attack the plane that bombs you. NATO has officially attacked Russia in a desperate plan, attempt to stop Trump's peace plan. This is totally insane. Trump must pull out of NATO now. Dude, what is up with Alex Jones's face here? Why does he look like this? Why is he so red? Why is he so red? Did he just come back from the airfield? Did the fire peel off his skin? Why? It's like he just came out of a hot dog roller. What is up with him? What? There's somebody asked Grok to like pop his face out, but like he's red. He's red. Anyway, if Europe did this, that'd be the most impressive display of force from Europe that I've seen this whole war. And that's exactly why I know they didn't. This one's great too. Ukraine just did Russia a favor by removing some junk. Well, that's great. Then there's no problem. I'm happy that the Ukrainian Recycling Green program continues to find success. Removing subject. Why is it a big issue that they were hurt then? And why are the Russians so freaked out by losing so many Tu-95s and certainly their radar systems? That ain't junk no matter what you think of it. This was one of my favorites. This is from Mog Russian EN. It's just an English-speaking Russian propaganda account. Now, if you look in their profile image, you can see that it's actually the same image that they've posted here. The only difference is that they've placed little red angry eyes on the bear to indicate that they're angry and both completely socially unaware, like a child playing with dolls. Oh, the Russian bear's gonna come and it's gonna... It's like a child. Breaking. The real war has begun now. The day has come. The entire West will pay the price. The day has come. Well, this was posted on June 1st. I'm in Kiev. 1 second. Looking out the window. It doesn't look like the day has come, because I still see civilization out my window. But this idea, the real war has begun. How many times has the real war begun? How many times has that happened? Because it keeps happening. I don't know if you guys notice this trend, but there continues to be this trend of any time the Russians get their teeth kicked in, whether it was the Russians being pushed out of Kherson, whether it was the Kharkiv counteroffensive, whether it was, oh God, let me think, the Moskva sinking, any one of these attacks, or the Kursk incursion. Oh, it was especially when they crossed the border in the Kursk. There's always, anytime Russia particularly gets its head kicked in, you get some variation of, oh my God, the real war begins now. And after hearing it so many times, I have to assume that Russia's like fighting 5 or 6 wars at once because they keep starting new war. My God, maybe that's why they're losing. Just do one war. Maybe if you just concentrate on the one, you'll have a little bit more success. Let's keep going, though. Let's keep going because there's so much. Here's Timcast, if you guys are interested. And what Tim Pool, the Ukraine is the most dangerous enemy to the world, not climate change, not international terrorism, not child trafficking or international drug cartels or corruption. No, just Ukraine defending itself. Timcast, he says, who would have thought he was paid by the Russians? Early reports indicate that Ukraine successfully destroyed a number of Tu-95 strategic bombers. The Tu-95 is a nuclear-capable Russian asset. Incredibly alarming escalation in the conflict. How is it an escalation? Russia blew up Ukraine's big planes. Does nobody remember the big, like Antonivka? Like, they blew up their planes. Why can't Ukraine blow up their planes? It's not an escalation if you blow up one of the resources that they use to bomb you. It'd be one thing if like Ukraine planted some C4 in a missile silo and blew it up and was like, we will threaten their nuclear, da-da-da-da. That'd be one thing. But they're specifically targeting the atomic assets that happen to overlap with their war against Ukraine. Almost as if they're taking it out because they're sick of being bombed. And with the Russians having no end to the war in sight in the immediate future, because they're not treating negotiations seriously, you have to try to limit the amount of deaths to civilians and the amount of bombing your city is going to be put through. The Russians would easily do the same thing. In fact, the Russians try to do the same thing all the time, disable the Ukrainian Air Force. They just don't use drones like this to do it because they didn't come up with the idea and maybe they wouldn't be able to pull it off. But Tim Cool, fantastic commentary as always. Here is a former British MP, by the way. This is a man who was elected to office where a group of his compatriots gathered together and said, this man deserves power. Now, he's no longer an MP, but he was. Now he has a more honored and holy profession. He's a podcaster. Let me read you what he said. George Galloway. Oh God, sorry, I gotta like 1 second. He's saying like today. Can I like 1 second? The way he's talking here, let me just. Today has been a day of infamy in Russia, just like Pearl Harbor. The Russian response will be swift and terrible, and can only end now one way, in the unconditional surrender of the Ukrainian regime and their running dogs. I fully expect this to be conveyed in Istanbul tomorrow. That's what they were. Well, okay. So if that's what he thought was going to be off, by the way, just why? Why this over the top? The running dogs, like he needs to speak like he's on North Korean television. He needs to speak like he's actively like the Americans are charging it on Saddam's capital, and he's got to go out there and still clean. Everything's fine, everything's good. Don't worry about it. They're Pearl Harbor. They're Pearl Harbor. Okay, so Pearl Harbor was a surprise attack done by the Japanese aircraft that was unprovoked by military action. This is a drone operation over 3 years into an active, large-scale hot war invasion being used to attack military assets that are bombing them. Not only is this not comparable to Pearl Harbor, they're not even on the same planet. But the regime and their running dogs, who does he think this convinces? It convinces some people, though. If you go in those replies, there are some people that are on board. But this is not the type of propaganda that's gonna convince the mass. This is the type of propaganda that people listen to and they think they're running dogs. The Ukrainians are dogs. They back off of it. This is for the knuckle draggers who are never going to be sympathetic to Ukraine anyway, because they've already decided that the Soros backed like XYZ like must be destroyed by the revanchist Russian coming to claim back the multipolar world. Like, unless you're already checked into all that, this isn't convincing anyone. This is bad propaganda, but it is silly and fun to read. So I will give George Galloway that. I will 100% give him that. So those are some of the reactions that I saw. These are just a few of them. There were some others. I wonder if I can find them. Oh, you know what? One of the best ones was General Mike Flynn. General Mike Flynn's, you know, as in Donald Trump's General Mike Flynn, that guy, he released a long post. Look at this. Look, he's paragraph posting. So he made a post about this. So Mike Flynn, of course, an associate with the president. He was, national security advisor for Donald Trump for a very brief moment during the first term. And some people were thinking about whether or not Michael Flynn was going to make a comeback into the American government. And hey, considering Trump's track record, I would still not count that out. But Michael Flynn has kind of separated himself from Main Street thought by being a psychopath who just will say anything for power. And what I mean by that is this dude will adopt any movement if it gives him money, gives him attention, and gives him support. And I think the clearest example of this is Michael Flynn was National Security Advisor to the President of the United States. He should know better than anyone that QAnon, especially somebody who actually had to get clearance, is not real. It's not a real thing. It's like it's a made up little internet schizo post. Hate to use the word, but I can't think of anything else in the moment. That is used for people who are already going to just smoke every bit of information crack you give them. These are people who are already predispossessed to believe in this nonsense. But he went out there and he went out and spoke the QAnon slogan and got where we go one, we go all. So he bought into that, or he adopted that, in order to make money and get attention. I tend to believe the latter because I would think if you're that high up in government circles, you should know by now that there isn't some secret child eating cabal running the world. The truth is, there's actually very few people running the world because anybody that grabs that staff for long enough can't seem to hold on to it. They let go. And there may be coalitions, maybe nation state, but this idea that there's a secret lizard people or secret blood sucking vampire or secret, adrenochrome guzzling, whatever. This is an easy solution for crazy people. And he adopted it in order to make money. So this is somebody who will lie about anything. And he's also somebody who's called for military coups in the United States like those in Myanmar. And if you know anything about the Myanmar Civil War, that should be a terrifying concept. But today, he decided to ramble about the Ukrainians defending themselves because there seems to be this gathering of, I don't know what it is. It seems to, I'm going to be bringing Connor on tomorrow, hopefully, or the next day to talk about it. But, what was it I said? I said, we have a vet bro crisis in this country, and we need to shut down the vet bros until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on. We'll talk about that concept at a later date with counterpoints. But for now, let's read Mike Flynn's rant. Attention. So it appears Zelensky gave the go-ahead to attack parked Russian nuclear-capable bombers without informing real Donald Trump. If true that our president was not consulted nor informed, this isn't simply a breach of protocol. Of whose protocol? Whose protocol? But Ukraine's a separate country. Their armed forces do not answer to our armed forces. What protocol? It's a geopolitical insult and a warning sign. If Ukraine is willing to conduct strikes with strategic consequences without notifying the White House, we are no longer allies with coordination issues. We are co-belligerents flying blind. Also, given Senator Warmonger Lindsey Graham and Senator Da Nang Dick Blumenthal's recent visit, this attack could appear as though it was sanctioned. I mean, from everything that's coming from, it could have been, it's possible that the Trump administration could have known it and is lying about it. It's not like Donald Trump ever had a problem with telling mistruths, but everything indicates that they probably didn't know, and it would make sense that they wouldn't know. It would make sense with an operation so secretive that they had to keep as few people informed as possible if it was ever going to succeed. Also, given I already read that, I pray the Russians have better intelligence than that. In my honest opinion, these two don't have the sense or common sense to pull something like this off. There will have to be denials, though. FYI, those bombers that were hit have to be out in full view due to nuclear treaty obligations. Zelensky took advantage of that. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God, I can't believe it. They took advantage? That's so mean. Why didn't they consider that? Why didn't they give them a fair warning in advance? Why didn't they send them a message telling them that drones were en route? I can't believe that. That's so mean of them. This is particularly stupid, not only because I don't like the logic, period, but Russia pulled out of the START treaty in 2023. They're not even in the treaty that he's talking about. They're not they suspended it. They suspended it 2 years ago. So no, they don't have to. And that's the first thing. And the second thing, the START that he is talking about, the new START treaty, didn't require that anyway. So not only are they not in New START, but New START also did not require all of its bombers to be parked in this way. I mean, like, the U.S. government parks its bombers in hardcraft shelters.
Mike Flynn is a traitor sob who shouldn't have general in his title. Why he thinks he has any right to make noise or breathe air, I don't know.
He's taking up good oxygen that could go to a shrubbery, a good American shrubbery that would not lie about the New START treaty, mind you. Anyway, continuing, where were we? Sorry, I just lost track after he lied about, like, you could just Google, is Russia in the START? No, they suspended it. And even if you were to go by the standards of the START treaty, that's not the standards of the START treaty. We have our bombers in hard shelter protection.
By Flynn's understanding, literally the vast majority of our planes in the Air Force would have to be parked outside. He's begging for an attack.
Yeah, not to talk, if you're talking about nuclear capable bombers, how many smaller atomic weapons does the United States have in its arsenal that we built specifically for the ability to use them out in Europe in case the Soviets ever, whatever. A lot of our Air Force is actually nuclear capable. Continuing though, let's continue down here. However, imagine any one of our big bomber bases having the exact thing done to them. Very costly U.S. strategic bombers can be taken out in the same way by anyone with access to inexpensive drones, delivery trucks, explosives, and a bit of technical knowledge. Not good, and new tactics will have to now be developed. This isn't Ukraine's fault. This is warfare developing. This is the bullet. Come on, dude. I just figured out the sword. That's not, no, come on. Really? People, and especially world leaders, need to realize the global implications to such an operation as Ukraine just pulled off. Again, there's implications from it, but it's not their fault. Because if they didn't do it, do you think the Chinese would have been like, oh, this would be very, very rude if we did this? No. Russia will respond. Action, reaction, counteraction. Those things that we in physics, those are the shifting tides of warfare. Okay. They took an action, they invaded, they got the reaction of being fought against, and then the counteraction of their bombers being blown up. Action, reaction, counteraction. This wasn't a bold action. It was brash. You can be both brash and bold. It's like those aren't like excluding, those things would exclude themselves. It is bold. It was a bold operation, no matter what you want to call it. If you don't like it, it's still bold. Ukraine's short-term win could be the world's long-term loss. Again, it's not like they invented drones. It's not like they invented shipping containers. It's not like they invented anything. They just put these things together and got to the logical conclusion. Hell, Call of Duty used to do this. I don't know how to, I wonder if I can find this. Or was it Modern Warfare? I don't know if you guys saw this clip going around. But it's not like they didn't come up with this idea. There were other people 2 years ago on Twitter talking about it. I think in Modern Warfare 3, they have these drones in a van parked on a bridge come out and hit the different parts on the bridge, make the bridge fall. This isn't a new or original idea. It's just that the Ukrainians actually were able to pull it off. They just made the hypothetical real. That's the only thing that happened. They just put the puzzle pieces together. But them putting the puzzle pieces together does not deny the existence of the puzzle. Eventually, somebody's going to put it together. And to be quite honest, I'd rather it be the Ukrainians than say, ISIS? You don't think they would put 30 or 40 of those things in the back of a van and park it outside of some major metropolitan area? My goodness. Oh, yeah. And in Modern Warfare 2, they had missiles inside of shipping crates. That is true, which the Russians also do, by the way. They actually advertise it. This wasn't a bold action. It was brash. Ukraine's short-term win could be the world's long-term loss. Despite what is a complete mess right now in Europe, there are still solutions to achieve peace. They are narrowing, however, and time, as it often does, becomes an enemy instead of a useful friend. He feels so smart saying that. He feels so smart. Trump said he ended in 24 hours. It's been well over 100 days. We're going towards 200 days. What are we waiting for? What sign am I supposed to look for? Where's the flag? Where's the symbols? Where's like the peace bat signal that's supposed to tell me that the Russians are going to stop acting the way that they have acted for the entirety of this war? Where is it? Because I don't see it. I don't see it anywhere. My goodness. It's crazy for, oh, the implications of this drone attack. Yes, we should overthrow the government like in Myanmar. What a psychopath. Unpatriotic, enemy of the republic, enemy of democracy. If you want to overthrow the government with a military coup, you cannot say you're an ally of the American Republic. You're declaring yourself an enemy of it. Just so happens to be the former national security advisor to Donald Trump. Oh my gosh. Thank you for the $5 Numerax. I think that's how I call it, Numerax. If you guys have any other ones you want me to check out, send it my way.